my kako. My name is Rachel Dacks, and I grew up in Miami, Florida, and for the last 2 decades or so, I've called Hawaii home. And I'm currently an assistant professor in the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Management here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. In full disclosure, I do not have a public health background, but I consider myself to be an interdisciplinary scientist working at the intersection of natural and social sciences in the conservation or natural resource management space. If you could just go back to that first slide, please. Yeah, thanks. One of my favorite physical activities, at least I'm being strategic for the purposes of this presentation, but one of my favorite activities is participating in biocultural restoration. And pictured here is an example of that. So this is an agroecological restoration site, or you could call it the restoration of a lo'i kalo, or a site that's growing kalo or taro, which is a culturally important root crop in Hawaii and really the wider Pacific as well. And this is a site that's very dear to me for many reasons, but one reason is because it was one of the first community work days that I attended was at this site. If you look at this picture, you might be able to see in the distance on the right side, there's a group of people working to maintain this wetland. They might be planting or weeding or harvesting kalo. And this is really rigorous work. This is not easy. It involves bending and squatting and pulling and walking and balancing through this mud. And also in this photo, you might be able to see kind of like right in the center in that lo'i, right in the middle, there are some Io or Hawaiian stilts, and these birds are beautiful and they're super cute. And they weren't really present when I first started volunteering at this site 15 or so years ago. But as the agroecological restoration has proceeded, these guys have started to return. And that's exactly what biocultural restoration is. It's restoration of an ecosystem that's led by a community, values that really impacts the entire system. So the ecological, this all species, the biodiversity, but also the health and well-being of people as well, and really connecting people back to place. Next slide, please. So pictured here is another community workday at He'ea Fish Pond, which is another restoration site. And in this particular workday, over 2,000 people came to participate in the restoration of a traditional Hawaiian fish pond that's over 800 years old. And for a couple of hours on this day, we passed large stones and coral boulders to patch the fish pond wall. Oh, previous slide, please. Thanks. So community workdays like these are really on the rise in the last decade or two. They've just been popping up more and more. And some of my research has found that just on the island of Oahu alone, on any given day of the week, there's at least one publicly advertised community workday that takes place. And on some Saturdays of the month, they're close to 10. And many of the organizations that host these community workdays are primarily focused on environmental restoration. However, they have many other goals, including community organizing, revitalization of cultural practices, perpetuation of traditional knowledge, youth development, and some even have public health as a goal as well. That being said, if we look at the metrics of success that many of these organizations are using, they're largely monitoring environmental or ecological measures, including things like a number of acres restored, or amount of invasive species removed, or fish biomass, amount of trash picked up. And the social metrics are often limited to things like number of volunteers or the hours that volunteers have contributed. Next slide, please. So during COVID, some of my work focused on how these largely environmental organizations pivoted to support community health, including through approaches like providing food or providing crop planting materials. And as part of this work, I also surveyed environmental volunteers to understand what they missed most about community workdays, since those pretty much came to a halt during the early pandemic. Over half of surveyed respondents identified the social benefits of volunteering, including feeling a sense of community. Over a third of respondents said they missed engaging with the land and the place, and nearly a third indicated that a lack of engagement with these groups during the pandemic had negatively affected them psychologically. And so related work that I've been involved in has focused on how these community work days influence graduate students who are pictured here. And graduate students have noted that through community work days have reduced stress level. And these are really important since grad students are a group known to suffer from mental health challenges. And I will end it there, but hoping to continue this work with other demographics. And there's my contact info and a link to one of the papers published on this topic. Mahalo.